guys, what's up? Tonight I am making a ginger and lemongrass infused Thai soup with crispy tofu and rice. I know it's a really long title, but it looks really good. It sounds really good. Like the picture looks really yummy, and I love, love, love ginger. Plus, it's snowing, so you know, soup, good for a snowy day. So the first thing I'm going to do is prep my tofu, because to get it crispy, you gotta kind of get a lot of that moisture and liquid out of there. This is how I always do tofu. I never used to like tofu because it was slimy and gross, and now I know how to cook it and I can make it taste really good. So what I have is just 2 packages. I have the super firm tofu, but again, it depends on your taste. If you want something a little less firm, then you can go with like just regular firm tofu, extra firm tofu. I mean, there's tons of options, but you want to take some of this liquid out. So I've just taken it out of the package and drained the water off, and then I just wrapped a paper towel around it real quick. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to split both of these like lengthwise across the middle here. So we're just going to split these both open. And we're going to have these get pressed. We're going to press them for about a half an hour, at least a half an hour, if not more. Just to squeeze some of that moisture out of there so you can have a nice crispy tofu at the end. So what I do is I just take like a kitchen hand towel, fold it over about 4 times so it makes like, it's the size of 2 pieces of tofu. And then I take a tea towel, and I do the same thing. So we're going to make it about this big, because you don't want the fuzz on the tofu. So that's why I use the tea towel as the one that's touching the tofu, because there's no fuzz on that. So I have my hand towel, half of the tea towel, and then I'm going to put each of these little halves there. Close that up inside. And then I'm going to take another tea towel, do just like the other one, if I can get it to fold, lay it right on top, put my other 2 halves of tofu right in there, fold it over, make sure they're like right on top of each other, get another kitchen hand towel, fold it in quarters like that. Then you get something heavy. I always use my cast iron skillet and just set it on top. And now I'm gonna let that sit there for about a half an hour. Then I will show you how to start cooking it up. Okay, so it's been about a half an hour. I've got my oven preheated to 425, and I've started to dice up the tofu. I usually cut it in about 5 by 6, and just like little cubes. So I'm just going to place them on my baking sheet, and I just line that with some parchment paper. And then I'm going to put these in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not going to cook them like as much as I would normally if I was doing like a stir fry or something, because I don't cook them any more after I add them to the stir fry, but these are going to get cooked a second time because they get cooked in a sauce. So I'm just going to start these at 15 minutes until they're like slightly getting golden. Like you just want them to start getting golden and firm up a little bit. But since they're getting cooked again, if you cook them too long in the oven, then cook them again, they're going to be kind of hard, and you don't want that. You still want some softness to the middle. So those are in for 15 minutes. While those are cooking, I'm going to get all my ingredients and stuff out for the soup, and then we're going to get that started. Okay, so my tofu's still in. It's got about 4 minutes left. I have my soup pot out. I've got some water boiling, or almost boiling, because I'm going to cook up some rice that goes in the dish once it's finished. Tonight I'm just using regular instant brown rice. You can use whatever kind of rice you want, wild rice, long grain brown rice, whatever you want. So that's waiting for the water, and what we're going to do first is make our little marinade for our tofu, and then we're just going to set that aside until the tofu's ready. So I have some soy sauce here. We're going to put that into a bowl, probably about 1/4 cup. You can do more. I don't want a ton of marinade on my tofu, but if you want more, definitely go for more. I add about 1/4 cup in there, so that's that. Oh, and my water is in, so I'm gonna put my rice in while it's ready, and I'm just gonna cook up about 1.5 cups of the dry rice. You can do a cup, 1.5 cups. Totally up to you how much you want to use. Need a spoon. Stir that around. Alright. So that's going to sit there for about 5 minutes on low. And, oh yes, back to this. 2,000 things going at once. Alright, so the soy sauce. And then I'm just going to use some maple syrup. You can use any kind of sweetener. Agave, honey, syrup, whatever you want. But if you're going to use syrup, make sure it's the pure maple syrup. And I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon of that. And then some sesame oil, toasted sesame oil. So we're going to put about 1 teaspoon of that in there. I like a little extra of that. So that's going to go in there. And I'm just going to set that aside for right now until the tofu is done. And until I'm ready to cook it, because I don't want it to soak in there and lose all the crispiness it got from the oven. So once I'm ready to cook it in the pan, I'll toss it with that, throw it in the pan, and then it'll be ready to go. But until then, I'm gonna prep my vegetables, and then I'll be back to show you how to start getting the soup ready to go. All right, so I've pulled my tofu out. It is just slightly brown. You can kind of see it's, there you go, slightly brown on there. And it's still soft in the middle, but again, we're going to cook it some more. So I'm just letting that kind of hang out. I've also chopped up 3 carrots, 4 stalks of celery, and 1 medium-sized onion. I've melted down about 2 to 3 teaspoons of coconut oil in my soup pot. And I'm just going to add my vegetables in here to start cooking those down a little bit. You want to cook that until those onions have gotten translucent. So it'll probably be 5 to 10 minutes, depending. And while those are cooking down, I am going to chop up 1 bunch of scallions. And we're going to use most of these in the soup. And then the rest, though, will be used just as garnish on the top. So I'm going to just dice them all up and then throw most of those in once those veggies are done. And I'll just stir them on and off for the next few minutes. We're also going to throw in some lemongrass. I'm using the whole stick here, but I'm going to cut like a little X in the bottom and the top, just so the flavor kind of comes out, because we're not obviously going to eat this. So this is just going to go in to infuse some flavor. So I'm going to do that. I'm using 3, well, 1 really good sized one, and then 2 kind of smaller ones. You can use however much you want, depending on how much flavor you want in there, how much lemongrass flavor you want in there. And then when we add that, we're also going to grate some ginger in there. I love ginger. So I'll probably add more than necessary. Probably add like about a 1-inch piece grated. Like this is a really fat one, so probably about there, but I'll probably add more than that just because I really love ginger. And it's so good for you. It's really good for digestion too. So these veggies are going to cook for a couple more minutes. And then I'll be back to show you what we're going to add to it besides the scallions and the ginger and the lemongrass. Those onions are done. So we are going to throw in these scallions, and I just have the lemongrass on here too. All that in there. I took some of the scallions out and reserved them so we could have that for garnish at the end. So that goes in. And then we're going to grate some ginger. Again, probably about a 1-inch piece. If you like ginger, go ahead and grate some more in there. A good tip about ginger too. I know a lot of people complain because it's so fibrous, so when you try and grate it, it just makes like a big mess. Keep it in the freezer. When you get it, You can peel it down a little ways if you want to, and then put it in a plastic baggie, a freezer bag, and put it in the freezer. And then when you grate it frozen, you don't get all that like fibrous stuff hanging out and gumming stuff up. So I use ginger a lot, so I always just keep it in the freezer and it's there when I want it. And this one's actually been sitting out for a little bit, so it's actually starting to thaw. And we're getting some of that fibrous stuff, but it's not bad. All right, so we got that in there. We're also gonna throw in some garlic, about 2 teaspoons. And we're gonna let that cook for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then we're going to add in our chicken stock and our can of coconut milk. And with the coconut milk, you want to use unsweetened and full fat for this one. All right. So this is looking really good. We're gonna cook this until it starts to like get fragrant and you can smell it a little bit. Like the lemongrass and the ginger, you should just start to be able to smell it. And then we will add our stock in there. Probably just another minute or so. And then I'm gonna get that can of coconut milk opened while I'm waiting for that to cook. Now you gotta, when you get the full fat ones, you gotta shake it like a lot because the fat tends to rise up to the top and just kind of settle there, and then all the liquid comes to the bottom. So you're gonna want to shake it really, really good. And I mean, since you're adding the whole thing, you can just scrape any of that like solid fat into the pot and it'll be fine. But if you're not using the whole thing, you want to make sure that you're getting some of that fat and some of that liquid. So you're gonna want to shake it really good, or dump it into another container and stir it and mix it up really good if you're not going to use the whole can in one serving. Alright, I can smell that lemongrass. So I'm going to add in my can of coconut milk. And like I shook this forever and it's still kind of sitting on the top of that can there. And then I'm going to put in about 3.5 cups of chicken broth. You can add 3 to 4 cups, totally up to you. I had 3.5 cups left because I used half a cup in last night's dinner. So I'm just going to use the rest of it in the soup. If you want it a little more soupy, add a little more. If you want it a little less soupy, don't add quite as much. And then we're just going to give that a stir and let it cook for about 15 minutes. And while this is cooking, we are going to work on our tofu. So I will be back to show you that in just a minute. So I put my tofu in the bowl with the marinade mixture and just kind of mix it around a little bit. And in my skillet over here, I've got about 1 teaspoon or 2 of coconut oil that I've melted down. My pan is preheated and I'm just gonna cook these up. I'm just dumping everything in, all that leftover sauce and stuff. We're just gonna let that cook in there for about 15 minutes over medium to medium high heat until it gets crispy, and then the sauce should kind of evaporate out of there. And we're gonna do that while this is simmering for 15 minutes. I have it covered to bring it to a boil, then I'll uncover it and simmer it for 15 minutes on a lower temperature. While that's happening, I'm gonna chop up a little bit of spinach, and then we're gonna kind of finish this whole thing off, and it's gonna taste really good because it smells really good and I'm really excited to eat it. Alright, so the soup is done simmering. My tofu is done cooking. It is nice and crispy. And now I'm just gonna finish this off. So we're gonna take 1 lime and we're gonna zest the lime right into the soup. And then we're gonna also add the juice. Oh, the last 2 or 3 minutes or so of this simmering, I added my spinach just so it wilted down. I don't want to like cook it too much. So the last 2 or 3 minutes of that 15-minute simmer, throw your spinach in there and just let that wilt down. So we're gonna add our lime zest and our lime juice, and then we will season with some salt and pepper and add our rice and our tofu, and then we will dish everything up. And for garnish, I have the rest of those green onions. I have some cilantro, and I just have some chopped up peanuts. And you can also add some cilantro to your soup if you want to. I did because we love cilantro. Cilantro is absolutely optional. The peanuts are optional. It's just if you want to garnish with that kind of stuff, you can. And if your family likes that stuff, which we do. So here's my lime zest. We're just gonna cut this in half and then squeeze that juice right in there. And I just have this sitting on low right now. I'm just gonna turn it off after I add this juice. There we go. Then I'm just going to throw in my rice and my tofu, and then it'll be time to eat.